And welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. It is World Press Freedom Day, and we've got the best of the best of the best of Kenya's media right here on the bench. It's gonna be smoking, like my friend Oduor said earlier on. Let me introduce our guest from the very far left. We've got Olo Janak. He's chairman of KCA. There's going to be a lot of abbreviations tonight. KCA is a Kenya Correspondents Association. Right next to him is Zubeida Kananu. He's the first female president of the Kenya Editors Guild. That's a KEG. Right next to her is Dr. Harun Mwangi. He's a lecturer at Maseno University. He used to be the head honcho of the Media Council. Right next to him is Eric Oduor, Secretary General KUJ. That's the Kenya Union of Journalists. And right here next to me, Patience Nyange, Executive Director, AMWIC. That's the Association of Media Women in Kenya. That's a lot of abbreviations, my goodness. Hey.
Yes. AMWIC, KUJ.
Welcome all.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start with the president. Congratulations.
Instead of the extinguisher, I expected you to have some champagne, some flowers, dancers.
You should have brought the champagne. You were elected this weekend. Congratulations, Zubeida.
Thank you so much for having us.
First woman president.
And I was the first female vice president of Kenya Editors Guild.
Before that?
Yeah.
For how long?
2 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah? I'm truly humbled.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I believe they didn't elect me because I'm a woman. It's what I'm capable of, that what they've seen, what I'll do for them, what the promises I made. Yeah. They know when I make a promise, I have to fulfill it.
Absolutely.
So at least I'm tried, tested, and they believed that they should entrust me with that position because I'll serve them diligently, as I've always done.
Strength of a woman.
Yes, you know. And you know, we've written history. We've gone to history books because KEG has become the first. I know my brother here challenged me the other day. One of the few institutions, organizations in Kenya where we have equal gender representation, because right now in EC, Executive Council of Kenya Editors Guild, we have 5 male and 5 female leaders in the Executive Council. And we hope everybody in the country will be able to emulate that, you know? That's what we've been fighting for, and at least
yeah, you've done better than the government.
I know, right? Yeah. So we hope we'll be able to achieve that across board. Yeah.
Well done.
You see, Jeff, go on, Eric. You see what I did? I was just telling her that she was learning from the best.
Oh, really?
At KUJ, we've had a situation whereby in an executive of 11, we had 6 females and 5 men. So we've done it before. So it's good always to learn from the best and also work together.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, it tells you that media is now an example that to the country.
Okay. Olo Janak, let me go to you real quick. On this World Press Freedom Day, there are those who are saying that Kenya press freedoms are under attack. What do you say?
Certainly, you know, press freedom is under attack. And we can take the recent example of the demonstrations where, you know, over 20 journalists were attacked and a number were injured. And the demands we have made to the government, the responses have not been in terms of how can they prosecute the police that, you know, that attack journalists and or even the citizens. Yes, so I mean, and of course today we have had celebrations, or we don't say celebrations. Actually, this is a day to mark and reflect. So right from morning we have been reflecting on this, and if you get the speeches from government, the rhetoric, you begin to see that actually we are under attack, and we must be fairly vigilant.
Yeah, Professor Harun Mwangi, do you agree?
Yeah. I would say that globally, the media freedom is under attack. And there is a decline in democracy. Governments are becoming a little bit, restricting the spaces for the civic spaces. And of course, quite intolerant to media freedom and freedom of expression. So basically, it's a trend that is that we can witness all the way from Europe, Eastern Asia, and now in Africa. So it's a global concern, and for us, near home, it was a bad thing, a bad experience for us.
Yeah.
So we are concerned.
Patience Nyange, are we becoming an endangered species?
Well, we have always been, as far as I remember. I remember when I was a young girl, when I wanted to do media, everyone feared for me and said, Bishas, do you really want to be in this industry? You've seen colleagues being, being clobbered at each other each passing day. You've seen others who have been pronounced dead. So is this really the profession that you want to be in? And well, we have now documented a lot of harassment. We've been documented threats, intimidation against journalists, and it has been the case that as it is now. What we experienced 20 years ago is still there until today, and we are in 2023. We'll imagine that we've been advocating for the press freedom and, just trying to say we need to ensure that our journalists work in a very safe and secure environment. But we have seen in the recent past, now we have the famous Tuesday, Mandamano Tuesday and Mandamano Thursday. And for the last, I think 2 to 3 weeks ago, we issued a statement and we had recorded about 24 cases of journalists who were either harassed or the equipment destroyed. And so, yes, we are under threat.
Eric Oduor, and yet, Kenyan journalists are amongst the freest on the continent. There's some countries you can go to and, my goodness, if you lift a camera, you're in jail.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Just to begin from where you've left it, everybody and most countries in Africa, they come to Kenya to benchmark. And if you're on the flip side, Kenya has always been known for benchmarking. We're always going out there to benchmark, but in a situation where people are coming to Kenya to benchmark. Secondly, media occupies a very, very important space in a society that actually serves everybody. So in this service, you don't expect to please everybody. Of course, you'll always get people who will not be happy with what you are doing. We always get those who are happy with what you are doing. What happens is we are serving the public. So whatever we're supposed to do is done in the common good of the society. So long as the society is happy, then the media should be happy that it's doing a good job. Secondly, what I usually say that if you're in a situation whereby by the end of the day, people are praising you, you have to ask yourself questions. Are they praising me because I'm doing a good job, or are they praising me because there's something that I know to do and covered up for them? So that is the situation where I'm finding ourselves based on this very important space that the media is occupying in a society.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Zubaida, let me ask you this. With Mandamano Tuesday, like Patience was talking about, right? I mean, it's what should journalists be doing? What is the right thing to do to avoid getting harassed, to avoid getting your equipment taken or stolen, to avoid, you getting injured or worse? What are you telling?
It's not about what journalists will do. It's about what the society should do. The Constitution of Kenya guarantees us freedom as journalists.
If someone is throwing stones, Zubaida, at you, what do? Do you let, if you're in the way of the stones?
You shouldn't be throwing stones in the first place.
Yes, and that's
that's what we're saying.
It's about the society. It's not about us, the journalists. They should let us do our job. It's a right that is guaranteed under the Constitution. Article 33, 34, 35 is about the media. I don't know whether there's any organization that has been given so much power in the Constitution as we have been given. Under the Chapter 4 of the Constitution, it's about the Bill of Rights, and that's where we find ourselves as journalists. So it's a right that we've been given by the Constitution, a right that we should be enjoying as guaranteed in the Constitution. So it's not about us. We are doing our job as journalists. It's us. The Constitution, Article 35 says that you have a right to information as a viewer, as an audience, as a Kenyan.
The public.
As the public, and we have the right to give you that information. But when we have all these state actors, non-state actors coming and drawing these threats and intimidation against the media, it's deafening. It's
Jeff,
frustrating.
Put it this one, Eric. Go on.
Journalism is defined as a public good. A public good, it means that it's for the betterment of the society. And therefore, if you are throwing stones at journalists, if you are attacking journalists when they are doing their job, then it means you are endangering yourself. You are not endangering the media, because one day, if you wake up and the journalists are not there, then you find yourself in the state of darkness. Then the society will suffer as a whole. It's not the journalists who you are attacking who will suffer, but the society as a whole will suffer. So it means that what we need to do, whenever we have this kind of demonstration going on, what we need to do, we have to provide safe corridors for journalists so that we are able to serve the society. Even if you may not like us, but if the consequences strike, everybody will suffer, even those people who are attacking journalists, because if you find yourself in the state of information darkness, then there will be a problem. So journalists should be allowed to do their job, because they are not doing it for ourselves because we like it, but because we want a society to continue thriving. If we don't do that, we will not have a society called Kenya.
Yeah,
hello,
Jeff,
you agree? Hold on.
Sorry,
hello, you agree?
Yeah, certainly I agree. I mean, what you asked what the journalist should do.
Yes.
I mean, our colleagues here have talked about the role of the society and the role, of course, the state. The state's role is to guarantee the enjoyment of those rights. See that, eh?
Yeah.
That's the role of the state.
But you saw a vehicle destroyed not too long ago. You saw journalists' cameras.
So then it's the failure.
Injured.
Yeah, it's the failure of the state to do its job, because we have given, there's a social contract between the citizens and the state. We are citizens first. So if the state fails to do the job for which it is elected, then it stands indicted. So on the other side, and because journalists can report from hostile territories, and essentially Kenya sometimes stands in an hostile territory. So what we do as journalists is, of course, to train journalists to say, okay, in such situations, what would you do? Especially to minimize harm, because we have combatants. That is obvious. But we are saying the combatants should be aware that there is a group of people who should then be guaranteed safe corridors. Because you see now, under the Geneva Conventions, journalists are not supposed to be attacked, even in situations of hostility. Yeah. So there are those two elements.
And still, 62 journalists were killed last year, Dr. Harun Mwangi.
Yeah?
Around those 62.
Yes.
Right? You guys, you saw the statistics today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows that, people care less for our lives or our position or our jobs.
It is quite unfortunate, Jeff, because every citizen has right to be protected, and the government has a right and a duty and an obligation to protect and to ensure safety and security of every Kenyan. And journalists are part of that particular society. They should not be treated as an externality within a society. They are part and parcel of that particular society. But it has come to a situation where we are isolated and seen as a group of people that are trying, to use the word that we are used today, to bring down the government, which is not the case. And therefore, there is need for a government that is responsible and that cherishes democracy and the rule of law to protect journalists, because journalism is at the center of democracy and human rights. The theme of this year is that it has to do with the freedom of expression is a prerequisite requirement for pursuit of other rights. It is not possible for us to pursue other rights if we are not free, if we don't access information.
Yeah.
And that is the current duty of the media. And therefore, a civil society, a more democratic society that cherishes values of association, values of dignity, must also cherish the freedom of expression. And that is where journalism takes.
Patience, you agree, you were saying?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. So the theme of World Press Freedom Day 2023 is anchored under the theme, shaping a future of rights, freedom of expression as a driver of all other human rights. And while it's okay, you don't have to love journalists. You don't have to like all of us. But let us do our work in a protected space. Give us the freedom to be able to do our work in a way that when you go out with your camera, cameras are very expensive. Think about all the equipment that you have here. It's a lot of money. So let's think about it in terms of, there's a journalist's life. One life loss is too many. So let's think about that journalist. No journalist works from a vacuum. We are all somebody's daughter, son, somebody's husband, somebody's, wife. You have a network, you have a family behind you that depends on you. So we want to see that the work that you do is work that fends for you, is work that gives you your daily bread, but also you feel secure in that job that you do. And therefore, that defines the kind of right that we're trying to expect from all the journalists who go out. We want you to go out in a safe place. You want you to come back, report. It's not like any other job. The person who cleans in this place comes into this place, cleans and does a job in a space and feels secure. That's exactly what we're looking for. We want our journalists to do, and most of the time we've always said journalism is a calling. Yeah. It's a job that we all love. It's a job that we really like to do. We want to tell stories. We want to inform the society. But how do we do that? We want to feel protected. We want to feel secure enough, and we want to feel that this is the place, this is the kind of job that I want to do. And so, as he says, the society need to be taught it's okay the work that we do, we are very impartial. We don't belong. We don't want to, feel like we have the duty to protect, to defend the government. We don't need to do that. We just need to report. Our work is to report, to inform the society. It's completely enshrined within the Constitution that defends our rights. And then for the media owners, in the same manner, protect the journalists that work there. Ensure that the working conditions are secure enough to ensure that everyone who works here feels the need to leave their house and go to a space that they feel, this is where I belong. There's the calling that I have to do, but also I want to feel that my employer also takes charge of my needs at the organization.
Yeah. Eric, the journalists at the KUJ, when you talk to them, when they talk to you, do they feel safe under this present government when they go on assignment? Do they feel safe?
I think there have been, this is the question, not even journalists who are in KUJ, this is a question that I keep encountering every time I meet different players who are asking me, Eric, what is the state of press freedom in Kenya? And I keep telling them that what we are having right now, number one, we have the Constitution that has already been stated here that whatever much you want to do, you'll have to go to a referendum to change the status of press freedom protection in Kenya, because Article 34 is one of the most protected sections of the Constitution. So it has to be amended, and if you were to amend it, it has to go through a referendum. And we were having a conversation with different actors, including the government. And after we issued a statement on 1st of April, when we said that there are some issues that need to be addressed, at least I'm glad to say that we've seen some kind of goodwill from the government. The government is willing to engage, and that we are saying that we need to engage, that if there are some areas that probably we need to address, then we need to address by consultations, not by frustrations and intimidations of the media, so that we are able to be forced into some kind of agreement or some kind of agreeing with what the state wants. Look, you talked about the statistics. Look at the countries where journalists have been killed. If you look at the World Press Freedom Index that was released today, this country, look at Syria. I'm sure if I were to ask you that tomorrow, I accompany you, tag along to go to Syria, you'll ask me several questions. Look at Iraq, look at Afghanistan, look at the state of stability in this country. That it tells you what I was saying about having media freedom in a country. It helps the stability in terms of rule of law, in terms of good life, in terms of political culture. It helps a country. But if you're a country where press freedom is not respected, they will find ourselves in a situation where Syria is, we'll find ourselves where Afghanistan is, where Iraq is, and these things are not far from where we are. If we do not protect what we have discussions with different duty bearers. What do we need to do? Like what my sister is saying, how do we make sure that the environment where journalists are operating in is safe? We start with the duty bearer. Number one is the employer. Are you providing the necessary tools of trade for journalists to do that? Then we go to the second duty bearer, which is the government. Is the government offering protection for journalists whenever we are going out, because they have that responsibility. And like I've said, we've seen some kind of gesture, because it had happened in previous demonstrations where we saw journalists being attacked. The vehicle, you're saying, somebody going there to vandalize a vehicle so that the security officer can get access to where journalists were getting that kind of protection. So what do we need to do? We need to bring all the duty bearers, because that's what, if you look at what UNESCO has put in place, safety and protection of journalists, we have different duty bearers. Us as KUJ, we've got a role to play. Employers have got a role to play. The government has got a role to play. Even international community also, they have got a role to play to ensure that we make the environment safe and journalists are able to operate and serve the society without feeling unsafe. And also, lastly, and even the government enforcing the laws, because Kenya media, we are not insufficient of laws. The laws are sufficient enough to protect us, beginning from even the employment laws, labor relation laws that are there. Look at Work Benefit Injury Act. It said that if you are in line of duty and you are injured, it's the responsibility of the employer to ensure that you are insured before you go out there. And in the event that you are injured, the employer has got a responsibility to ensure that you are treated, and the employer takes the responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Zubaida, do you agree?
Yeah, because when you look at the statistics that were shared today, it shows that Kenya has slipped from position 62 last year when you talk of media freedom, to position 116 out of 200. That tells you there's a problem in society. And what has caused us this? The death or murder of Pakistani journalists has been mentioned as one of the key factors or contributors to that. And then also our pronouncements against media has also contributed to that, because in 2021 we were in position 103 out of 200. 2022 we were in position 62, and 2023 this year we are in position 116. That's why I was telling you, it's more of what the society needs to do than what journalists are doing, because when you look at most media houses, if not all, most media houses have equipped journalists as is expected. Like when you remember during the last Maandamano that was held here in Nairobi, most journalists had PPEs. We saw them with helmets and masks and, bulletproof, those who can afford them and stuff like that. But they were still attacked, We've seen both physical attack and we've seen on social media. We no longer have freedom of expression as journalists.
And clearly, those jackets had press on them.
They had press on them, but they were still attacked.
Yeah.
And most of the time when we go for such assignments, we stand where the police are, and we expected them to protect us because we feel safer with them than on the other side. But they still turned against us and attacked our journalists. So it's not about journalists. As a journalist, you don't have any weapon. You have your camera, you have your notebook, you have your pen, and you're going there to inform the public of what is happening. But when your friend turns against you and attacks you, it tells you you are not the problem. It's the society that has a problem. When a leader goes to social media and says, this is a cartel that needs to be crushed. As a leader, you hold a very powerful position and you have a huge following. Whatever you tell them is what they do out there. When a leader makes such remarks, it needs to be condemned, They need to stop that. They need to let us do our job and support what we do, because it's our right. That's why we are the fourth state, right? Mm-hmm. So they need to let us do our job. We are the public watchdog. If there's something that they don't want us to reveal to the public or tell the public, then they should tell us. You saw what happened in Kilifi last week, Wednesday.
In fact, I want to talk about that after the break. I want to talk about Shakahola. Shakahola.
Yeah.
It's the horror.
Shakahola.
Yeah.
But
the horror. I want to talk about that and why the press has been barred.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys know more than we do.
There's a lot of speculation.
Hold that thought. And also, you want to talk about something?
Well, I wanted to say, when we have political leaders, for example.
Hold that thought. When political leaders say that these are cartels that need to be shut down, then there's a problem.
Yeah. But also, maybe it could be a problem on our side. Is it time for us to also do self-introspection, to ask ourselves?
But Jeff, I don't think it's a problem.
Eric, don't you want me to go to break and pay some bills?
Yeah, we need a salary.
Next to him, Eric Oduor, Secretary General, Kenya Union of Journalists, KUJ, right next to me. Patience Nyange, Executive Director, AMWIC, which is the Association of Media Women in Kenya. Dr. Mwangi, you were talking about there seems to be some deliberate campaign to either clip our wings or completely, neutralize us?
Two things, Jeff. The state has become a number one propagandist. And it has weaponized information and disinformation. And that information that it is using through propaganda has set a message to the cliques at the top that media is a bad organization. And media is out to put this government down. Mm. And that message has percolated amongst the many people at the top. And every time a media person is seen, they reflect back and say, these are the guys that we are told are not doing a good job. That is a very dangerous trade in a country that is out to protect democracy and human rights. And that's something that we need to talk about loudly. And it's good that we are here now as part of that particular initiative to talk about it. But they also need to know that media is a constructive organization. It can build bridges in the society. That's exactly what happened in 2013. Media was able to build bridges. It is offering solution as well. There's no one that's an island of knowledge in terms of finding solution in society. We are a part of the society's solution, and therefore we must be led to provide and to play our role as an organization, just like any other in the country that is contributing to growth and development of our country.
Let me get a contribution from the rest. Janak Olo, what do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah. Certainly there's some deliberate. Actually, Jeff, if you look at it, it's not just now. There has been a trend. If you look at the NAC regime and the Kibaki period under the Grand Coalition government, there was a degree of freedom that the media enjoyed, and that also got into towards the time when we got the Constitution. And the consultative framework within the country of different players was much, much more, accommodating. But you see now, what we have now in terms of sustained attacks in the media, you must begin from 2013, because look, the Ruto government came in looking at the media as part of the civil society that drove the agenda of Hague. See that, eh?
Yeah.
And that is when the issue of saying that gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama came up. So what we have now, essentially we don't have a change of regime. No, it's an extension of the other regime coming, but with much more force in terms of how it's looking at the media and more rhetoric against the media. So what we are seeing now is nothing new. It's only a heightened campaign now. And it is coming from the general election period where it is generally thought, especially those who are now occupying space at the top, felt that the media, the perception they had, and which is continuing, is that the media leaned towards the side of their rivals. You see that? Eh? So that rhetoric continues. You see that? It informs, for example, the negative attitude towards the media, and also if, for example, the media is giving the public information about the demonstrations and so on, because the public is actually entitled to know whether Nairobi CBD is unsafe for them not to go or not, that.
Yeah.
So if, for example, like in 2018, we had a situation where the media was shut. Television stations were shut for a while. I mean, Kenyans were in darkness.
Yep.
What would happen now in a situation where there are demos and things are going on, and then the media doesn't tell people what's happening? You drive from, say, Westlands to the airport without knowing what's happening in between. Yeah, so the attempt to shut down the media is based on the premise that there are certain information that ought not to go out to the public. But essentially, that is what the Constitution is shielding the media, against. The assault on the media is actually, is against the constitutional provisions, like our colleagues have said. So we must be vigilant. That is essentially why we are saying, even as we speak here, and today, as we mark the day, the question is the media must remain vigilant.
Zubeda, you agree?
Yeah, because the other thing that I see, touching on what my brother is saying here, I think we need to sensitize the public about what media is, who journalists are, and what we do, because I think everybody's getting it wrong. I listened to the PS today when he was making his remarks, and he was like, you media, you are spreading fake news, and the other day you told about the death of the former vice president and so on. With the emergence of social media and new media, we've seen different people coming up. We've seen different content creators coming up. We've seen citizen journalists coming up. So, nowadays, out there, whenever you're seen with a camera, everybody sees you are, a media personality, you are a journalist. Yeah. But not everybody who holds a camera, or not everybody who creates content for social media, and not everybody who writes stories on social media is a journalist. I think we have a role to play in sensitizing we do, because what the PS said is wrong. Seeing that story on social media, it doesn't mean that it was posted by a media house or a journalist. Yeah. Not everybody who writes stories on social media is a journalist. I think everybody's getting it wrong. And what that is doing is escalating the attacks against journalists. You saw the other day when we were marking International Women's Day, I had a conversation about online GBV, which has become a big thing right now in society. And we asked, why do you think women are targeted the most in social media? And who do you think is targeted the most journalists, female journalists, came up as, you know, the biggest group of people that are being targeted online. Why? Because we speak out. So it's become a threat that it has gotten to a point where, especially prominent persons, journalists, female journalists included, have decided or opted to shut down their social media accounts. Others have opted to be spectators on social media. Others have opted to just not be on social media, which is a threat to what we are marking today, freedom of expression. Because whenever someone sees you as a female journalist posting something, they are like, oh, our watu wa media, our wanawake wa media, you are attacked. It's become a big threat that we are struggling. Yeah, you know.
It's like a big target.
So the emergence of social media, yes, it has grown us on one hand, that we are able to do some things that we were not able to do previously. I'm sure right now most people are watching JKL on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and so on. And on the other hand, it has escalated attacks against journalists, and that's why we need to sensitize everybody about who journalists are. That before you give a story to anyone, ask for a badge. We are accredited. We are given badges that, you know, you're supposed to ask for before you give a story to anyone. Not everybody who comes to you with a camera is a journalist. We need to remind everybody that. And when a PA stands and says, nyinyi watu wa media ndio mnapeleka habari za uongo and so on, I think turudi tuangalie who a journalist is.
Yes.
Right now we need to remember that we have new media, we have new content creators on social media. With all due respect, yeah, everybody is doing a good job, but ni lazima tutofautishe who a journalist is, who a media personality is, who has citizen journalist is, who a content creator is, who a brand ambassador is, before we attack journalists.
Yeah.
Ni lazima tupewe nafasi yetu tufanye kazi tafadhali.
Because they put us all in one category.
They put us in one category,
But
which
Jeff,
is very wrong. Yeah?
Look at it. This is what I will say. I usually say, if I walk into a meeting where a politician is praising a journalist, I'll walk out. That's a con game. A politician is always want to serve his interest or her interest. Right. So you walk into a meeting, and I'm not expecting that one day I'll hear the government come out and say that the media is doing a good job. That kind of adversarial relationship between the media and the government must exist. And even if you look at the origin of the Fourth Estate, when it came when Edmund Burke was addressing the House of Commons, he said, and there lies the Fourth Estate. Please give them the space to operate, because even during those times, journalists were never given space to operate. Look at the World Press Freedom Index that was released today. The big democracies where we want to learn and borrow ideas and benchmark with, they are not doing well in terms of press freedom ranking, because the relationship between the media and the government is supposed to be adversarial and have a line. That's what we're supposed to do. And I say the only response from the government or other players, which from where I sit, I would entertain, is physical attacks. Because if you start perpetuating physical attacks on journalists, then it's a problem. But criticism, which we've seen coming from the government, is healthy, because it tells us that you guys, you have to be on your toes. You have to make sure that you are doing your job right. So what we need to do between the government and the media and even other state actors is, what are the parameters? How can we engage? Listen to us, we listen to you. But what we are supposed to do is, we are supposed to have the public. The public good, like what I said, is journalism is a public good. So whatever the government says, whatever the politicians say, that should not deter us from doing what we are expected to do. We are coming from a regime whereby, and Janak will agree with me, that we've had a regime whereby the media actually, they had shut the doors. There were no conversation between us and the government through the Ministry of ICT. I remember the last time, Janak, we had conversation between us and the Ministry of ICT is when the former cabinet secretary was appointed and he wanted to have engagement with the media. Right now we have got new regime. What we are saying, and they have listened. We told them on when we issued our press conference in Manzoni, they have listened. So what we are saying is there a way we can engage? Two, we've heard them pronouncing that they want self-regulation in the media. Yes, if that's what we want, what are the parameters of engagement? Can we engage and see how we can strengthen what we have rather than the destroying what we have? They said yes. And after the meeting in Safari Park, I had engagement with the PS. I told PS, yes, you made this pronouncement. Is there a way we can have a forum where we come in as the media players, the government comes in, and any other actor comes in and see what are the issues? Can we also listen to you, but also listen to us? When we engage, because if you look at the countries that are actually doing well when in Press Freedom Index, look at, for example, Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, all of their media actually supported by the government. But there are parameters. Yes, we are supporting you, but these are the things that you must do in the best interest of the society, not to serve the politicians. Actually, those are the conditions. If you look at the funding conditions, for example, in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, they were saying, okay, fine, the government wants to engage you. We are going, one of the countries actually in Sweden, they don't have even a public broadcaster. What they do is, after 6 years, the licensing is given to limited liability companies to offer public service media to the public, but there are conditions. This is the programming, these are the things that are supposed to do, not to serve the politicians, but we are serving the society. That from the beginning I said, what we need to do, for me, I'm worried, and like the president is saying, when the public starts attacking us, we expect attacks, criticism from the government. But when the public starts attacking us, it means that we have to go back to the drawing board like we've done before, start having media literacy forums, town halls with the members of the public. What are these issues probably you feel that the media is not addressing and we should address? So I think that's where we're supposed to go. Okay. Fine, the public has spoken. It's upon us now to listen. The public have got issues. They feel that maybe the way we have been covering maandamano and protests, maybe there's something that we're not doing. We have to go back to them. Maybe when things now settle, we'll have to go back to the public through media literacy forums. Let us listen to them, because it's about listening. Because again, we cannot serve the public that we ask the media not willing to listen. Let's go there. Okay. Let us listen to them. Right. Let them also listen to us, so that by the end of the day, we'll be able to get an agreement that, okay, fine, we've listened to you, you've listened to us, this is the way forward. Then we get solutions, some of this thing. Because if the media collapses... Let's listen to patients now.
Thank you so much. Well, I agree with all my colleagues here. What they've said is very fundamental. And while I agree, I want to ask ourselves now, let's look, it's become like it's them versus us. You know, and that has always been the debate. You know, the public, the government versus the media. We must look at ourselves in the work that we do. Are we conducting ourselves in a professional manner that deserves the decorum that we're looking for? Have we hurt the public in a way that they look at us enemies? Are we in a space where we can say we are conducting ourselves in a very professional manner? I like the fact that we've spoken about citizen journalism, that many people don't differentiate. People see you with the camera and they're like, oh, that's a journalist. And you do something wrong and everyone says, the media has done us harm. The media has done the wrong thing. We need to protect the space of professional journalism. The people who've gone to school, who really have been there and understood that this is the art of journalism, this is how we do our thing, and this is really when it passes the editorial programming and everyone says this content is good to be aired, that's where we want us to go. And I know as media practitioners and media people, we have faulted ourselves. We have done wrong in many ways. There are times we have broadcast the content that was not verified. You know, at what level? Everyone is running to see that we are the media houses that have the splash. And in running for the splash, most of the time we really don't have very verified information. We are taking content from social media and using it to become, you know, the content that we air. What are the wrongs that we have done as media that will need to take us back to basics?
Yeah, that brings me to my point, Professor. I know you teach journalism, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure, you know, you go through, you see students coming through your classes.
Yes, yes.
And the question is, are you teaching them to be right, as Patience says, even if you're not first? Yes. You don't have to be first and fast, but you could be second but right.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, Jeff, journalism must be revitalized. It should remain critical. It should do investigative stories, but we must go beyond that to ask another question. So what? How do we connect societies? How do we build bridges? how do we provide information that will help people make decisions or solve problems that they are being confronted with. And therefore, solution-based journalism and journalism that connects with communities and societies is the way to go today. So that you're not looking at just what is of public interest, but you're also looking at what interests the public. Mm-hmm. How do you become part of the building of hope in a society, in a society that is going through despair and hopelessness? If you're talking to the young people, you're looking at what is happening now and what does it mean to me tomorrow, in the near future. Young people are interested with today, but also tomorrow, because of the desperation and disillusionment that is also happening within our society. Therefore, journalism that we are practicing must have another layer. Doesn't change. The philosophies don't change. The approach doesn't change. But we need to have another layer, constructive and sustainable journalism. And journalism that provides solution, journalism that build bridges, journalism that provide information that solves problems, journalism that is sustainable.
But, Oloza, Janak, let me ask you this. Last couple of weeks, horrific stories coming out of Shakahola. Horrific stories. And we were covering, media in general was covering it pretty well, day by day, until the death toll hit 110. And the PS for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, flew there.
Yes.
And before you knew it, media was barred. Why? Because of the doom and gloom, or what is it?
Now, allow me to get back to the discussion, and what, Patience Nyange talked about. One of the most important things we need to understand is that, like the Scandinavian countries and the others, there are certain principles with, the democracies have matured so that societies have come to a point where there is a degree of unity. Kenya is a fairly divided country. And therefore, even the way they look at the media, because media ownership, for example, sometimes when we have issues with the media, they begin to see, hey, who is owning that media? It gets even to the ethnicity level at certain points. And then the politics as well is ethnic. So when you see the contestations around what the media ought to report and what it doesn't, it is not principled, it is not ideological, no. People are looking at certain interests. For example, if you look at, Azimio Kenya Kwanza divide, beneath all those parties, there are ethnic blocs and so on that rotate. So the media then is expected to play a middle ground. Like the PS was trying to say. It is difficult to play a middle ground in a situation of violation of rights. You see, the media must take certain positions and say, okay, fine, this isn't right, okay? Let us get to Shakahola, okay? You see now, Shakahola is morphing into something that was unexpected. How can more than 100 people die in a country that has all the intelligence, in a country that has, government up to the village level? And then suddenly, when the media begins to expose what is happening, and theories emerge about organ harvesting and all these kinds of things, then now there are restraints on the media about getting to that space.
Are we making them look bad?
Are we reporting?
No, we're not.
No, who?
The government.
No.
Obviously, for me, yes. I can tell you that Shakahola is one of the most embarrassing things for the government. Because the government has slept on the job or actually turned a blind eye to something that has been happening. You see, would we say that the government has no tab on the religious community? They are. Mm-hmm. They have. They have been hobnobbing with the religious community all through. These people have been praying and so on. So to say that they do not know what has been happening, that is unacceptable.
Totally agree with you. Yeah. Totally. Zubeda, you don't agree?
I agree. Yeah. Because, it's our job. And that's why, as media, we need to stand for the truth. When such a thing happens, when you're told you can't tell a certain story, when the society decides for you what story to tell and what not to tell, that's why we need to stand our ground.
Even more.
Even more. And you know, I'm so happy that right now we have the Kenya Media Sector Working Group, that we are able to come together as different organizations and call for a meeting and tell the government that no, what you're doing is wrong. We can't just, you know, say yes sir, when you're told to jump, you jump, or you don't ask how far. No, we can't live in that era, not today. And you remember the other day when we called for a meeting in Manzoni as Kenya Media Sector Working Group, and we told them, no, what you're doing is wrong. You can't attack journalists for doing their job. They listened. So even for this, we have to stand our ground, because there's a lot of speculation. What he has talked about, organ harvesting and so on. You know, even when stories break on social media, people always go to mainstream media to verify the information. But if they come to mainstream media and all we are relying on are press conferences, then we are not doing our job. We need to go down there, see what is happening, and they need to let us do that. You know, they've said that the process of exhuming more bodies will resume next week. We hope that they're going to give us a right to access that area and tell people what is happening. You know, they are the ones who license these churches. You know, they are the ones who license. Actually,
there are two television stations.
Go on.
Actually, there are two television stations that have been shut down by the government, that were licensed by the government.
Right.
But also, in a crisis like this is the time you need media most, instead of actually barring journalists from doing this, because this is a situation whereby people have been brainwashed. There is a cult that has been in existence, like Janak says, it has been existing, but the government has done nothing. This is the time you need the media so that you can deconstruct the ideologies that these churches have been selling to the people. This is the time that you need the media also to help in terms of changing the hearts and the minds of the people who had been brainwashed by these churches. This is the time that you don't have to shut the media out of covering this, but it's the time you embrace journalists. How can we help the society? Because I was saying the media exists to help the society. This is the time you ask the media, how can we help these people at Shakahola? What has been going on? It has happened. People have died. But how can we prevent this from happening again, from morphing into something else? So that is when I bring in the media. I use the media to change the hearts and the minds of the people who had been brainwashed into believing in what is going on. But when you shut down the media, or you shut out the media not to cover these events, then you're not helping the situation. So that's what I was saying. In a situation where there's a crisis, because we've seen in different situations where the crisis is developing, you need to sit down with the media. Sitting down with the journalists and the media houses and saying, okay, fine, look, we are in this situation. How do we move forward? That is when you start getting ideas from different players that, okay, fine, it has happened, as much as we may wish, and also request that you continue with investigations to find out what happened. But then, how do we turn this thing into something that can help the society? Because people have suffered.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying.
Patience, you were saying?
Yes, I think this is the time for us to interrogate the role of investigative journalism. And well, we could say we're not recording this. We have journalists, and most of the media houses now have correspondents in very remote areas and also within at the county level. I think it's the work for journalists to actually go underneath now and find out what has been happening here. Ask all the questions that we're not asking. Our work as journalists also has been, most of the time, we live within this society. The journalists who live within Shakahola, where have they been when all this was happening? So I think for us, that's what I'm saying, we need to ask ourselves, what is the conduct of the work that we do? When we find, like, the president goes and said, I will support you despite how biased you are. And we imagine that that is a statement from the president. We must talk about that statement. And we must remind him this is not how we want to be defined. When we have...
So you are trying to say that you expect the president to say that I like you?
No. Him defining that we are biased. The work that we do, we are not supposed to we're supposed to be impartial. So we're not supposed to be leaning on any side. And therefore, he doesn't have to like us. We don't have to like him on this other side. We just need to do our work. We just need to do our role. And in the same manner, when we have being defined, like, magazeti ni ya kufunga nyama, those are the conversations that we're saying. And everyone else in the society, as we are trying to look at the conduct of the society, how do they define us? It's because they're looking at these leaders who are standing in podiums and defining media in that that manner. I think for us, it's time to get united as media people. And I like the idea of, the Kenya sector, the Kenya media sector working group coming together and defining this is the conduct. This is how we want to be defined. We want to be dignified. We're in a space where journalism is dignified in Scandinavian countries. Talk about Norway, as we're talking about, is a classical example of how journalists should be treated. But also, it is time for us to look at ourselves. Let's try and see inside how we want to be defined outside there.
Jeff, there is something. I think we must debunk the myth that the media must be impartial or objective. I mean, it's not, for example, Shakahola has happened.
Yes.
What is the impartiality that's required of the media? The media must say that something has gone on wrong. I mean, do you stand in the middle of we think it might have happened or it might not have happened? No. So why is the impartiality that's expected in that? Who defines what is objective? If you allow Kithure Kindiki to define how the media ought to, to cover Shakahola, what will happen? So the media must do it in the best way that is required of the media. Is it that? So for me, I think we must also begin to debate this thinking that some people are imposing on us about objectivity. I mean, I was a journalist under the Moi regime. The media knew that certain things were wrong, and they said so. Right now, there is the pretense about saying, okay, no, this should not happen. The media must be able to say, what is it that is ailing the society? What is wrong? We must be able to say, this is wrong, irrespective of who is thinking about that. Because you see now, the media cannot be in the business of helping the survival of a beleaguered regime or, say, the opposition if they are in problems. What we are saying, what is the common good? What's the bigger picture for this country? If we don't define that and people begin to box us into what is objective, what is impartial, I won't buy that.
You're in trouble. And speaking of investigative journalists, maybe we should look for John Alanamo.
I know, right? Yeah, where has he been?
Maybe he's working on something, you never know.
Well,
he could be working on something in Shakahola.
And
we hope so.
I think one of the concern is that this government, sorry to say, has taken a position that there's some certain institutions that must be dealt with.
There's some
they say that media is an institution that is a kind of troublesome. They have been able to deal with the church, therefore church is co-opted. They have been able to deal with the opposition, they are now co-opted. And therefore all institutions that are watchdog in a society, in the government, are getting co-opted. Media has resisted the co-option.
I agree with that.
Good. And therefore, the government is very unhappy and very uncomfortable.
Well, they get used to that.
With the government, with the media.
Yes.
And that's why, because it has co-opted the church, the Shakahola is a shame on the part of the government. And therefore, for them to cover that, they must prevent journalists from covering. So this is a very big scheme of things. It's not just something that they woke up and gave a declaration. Right. It's something that the government is looking at in terms of how do we block the media? How do we try to demonstrate that really we are objective people.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I want to take a quick break, come back, talk some more. There's a lot of reactions from people across the board. We'll get that. We'll go to a magic wall. We'll read some tweets. But Olo Janak, Zubeida Kananu, Dr. Harun Mwangi, Eric Oduor, Patience Nyange, you guys are talking the truth without fear or favor. And that's exactly what we should always be doing.
That's what we stand for.
Without fear or favor.
Yeah.
Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLive. JKLive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.